we go ahead and get started? So my name is Ann Ayers. I'm the Dean of the Colorado Women's College and also the co-lead for the Community Plus Values community initiative, where we're just trying to serve this community better, create more opportunities for people to belong. And one of the things that we wanted to do during this really unique and special time is to reach out to our community with information that we thought would be helpful to all of you. So we have had a couple of different webinars so far. We've had one on mental health. We've had one for parents who are managing kids who are doing online learning at home. Younger kids, that was particularly helpful to me. I have 4 little boys scattered somewhere in this house doing online learning. And today we're here to talk about success as an online learner for college learners. And I couldn't be more happy to have these guests who've joined us. Allie is one of the very first people who I met, Dr. Allison Friedrichs, at the University of Denver when I got here about 2.5 years ago. She had worked closely with the Women's College. And some more official sort of background, she serves as the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs and an Associate Teaching Professor at DU's University College. They do professional and continuing studies at University College, if you're not totally familiar. Allison has taught communication courses for 20 years and earned University College's Master Teacher designation for continued professional development. And then last year in 2019 was recognized by the provost for her exemplary teaching. So that's all really fun. Really also fun is that she just came out, and I think it was just yesterday that I got the note that you launched an Audible course on So You Want to Be a Consultant. So that's really fun. And you're doing some work also in great courses. So welcome. Thank you for being here. And then I want to also introduce Dr. Michelle Kruse-Croker, who is at home. My understanding is you have 2 college students actually in your house. And they belong to you. They're your children, your sons, right?
Yes, and they're running around as well somewhere in here with my dogs.
So you're getting this on all sides and seeing what the experience is like from the faculty lens and from the student lens. So you have a PhD in higher education with a concentration in adult learning from DU. You're the director of the Denver Transportation Institute, as well as research writing and academic projects, and serves as the director as the academic director of the Bachelor of Arts Completion Program and an assistant teaching professor at University College. Many of our students from the Colorado Women's College are now, I think, in that bachelor's completion program. So thank you for welcoming them over there, taking such good care of them. And we're glad to have you this morning. And then last, I want to introduce our moderator. So the way this will work this morning is that Matt Walter is going to be asking questions of our 2 experts here. And I'm going to pop off screen, and then you are welcome, and we invite you to post your questions in the chat, post your questions in the Q&A, and I'll come back on at about 20 till and answer those questions. Sorry, I won't answer them. I will ask them on your behalf of Michelle and Allie. And Matt is our student body president here at the University of Denver. I wanted him in particular to be involved in this because I have the honor of sitting on several committees with Matt, including the Impact 2025 and also the steering committee for C+V. And I don't think that there are very few people who ask as good of questions as you do, Matt, through the university. So I thought you would be perfect to ask questions on behalf of the students here so that we can understand how to be successful in online learning. So welcome to everybody. I'm going to pop off, and I will be looking at the Q&A and at the chat, but let's have some fun. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Anne, for the introduction. So this is obviously a kind of crazy time for a lot of us, and a lot of our students are entering something that is completely new. And one of the things I just wanted to start with is what can we expect from a day-to-day of online learning?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and sensitive to the fact that this is new to many people, as you said, Matt. You know, Michelle talked about how she has boys at home who are going through this, and she and I were not online learners when we were in college. So even though that was a really long time ago, I do remember it, and I can't imagine, you know, all of a sudden being thrust into that world from from taking on campus classes. And so the transition is something that I think we can really understand that it can be a challenge. I think in terms of what we can expect, I'll start maybe big picture, and then I think, maybe we can, as the conversation continues, get more granular. But one thing we can expect, I think, from the current situation nationally and globally is that, we've already seen that online learning is becoming more and more common. University College has actually been online teaching and learning in the online teaching and learning space for 20 years. So it's not new for us. However, we recognize that it is new for many people. And what I think is going to happen is that it's going to become even more common and more prolific. Our world is changing, like it or not. We hope that this particular situation in which we find ourselves is certainly not our new norm, but I do think that it's going to have an impact on the way we do things. And I think that online learning is going to become even more prolific. So that's one thing I think we can say for sure. One thing that I hope we can see and say is that people will begin to embrace it, because University College has been doing this for 20 years. I can say without a doubt that it is possible, absolutely possible, to engage in an online learning space in a really successful and effective way. What that requires is that both the students and the faculty have to really embrace it. And you have to leverage what's great about online learning. And there is a lot that's great. It's totally possible to still have the connections and get all the knowledge. You're just doing it in slightly modified ways.
Yeah, I would, of course, second everything Allie just said. I would also say, though, the shift moves from having more of a sense of, I can just go ask a quick question to someone on campus, to becoming much more of an independent, self-driven, and you have to be a determined learner, because now you have to keep track of your own time. There's a little less accountability because the social pressure is more distant, if you will. So having that sense of accountability for yourself is really crucial to being able to do this successfully.
Well, I think that leads perfectly into one of the next questions I have, which is, how do we stay focused and motivated during online instruction when we don't have that class time?
Well, a couple things that I do, and we may be getting to this later, but I'll start them off now. So I also am not a lover of, the constant screen time, and I'm a pretty physical person, so I like to move around a lot. So sitting here for hours on end is not my preferred mode of learning or just being. So I build in things. So what I do is I look at, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to be here for an hour, and I literally set a timer. And then in an hour, I get to go do something else. So I kind of build in my reward structure. So in an hour, I'm going to go take a run. In an hour, I can go look at my dog or something. But I set up those times so I don't feel like I'm bound all day. So I build in those breaks for myself. It takes a lot of discipline to be able to go, okay, it's only an hour. It's only an hour, especially if it's something hard or the instructors maybe not coming across as clearly as you would like them to. Also, for the hour I am engaged, I kind of set up little goals. So here's the thing, the few things, or here are the few things I want to accomplish in that hour. And so I kind of stay on task. Another thing is really, it's tempting to have dual screens, which is great, but it's also tempting to have your computer screen and your phone. And you need to make a choice. So for that 1 hour that you're committed, I would say tuck away the mobile, treat it like it's also in timeout during your time, because you can't divide your attention. And that's true if you're in class or online. So just a few things to start with.
Yeah, second everything Michelle said. We'll probably be doing a lot of that. I'm going to go back to one of the first things she said and build on that. That probably is the biggest distinction about online learning is how important the your autonomy is and your sense of responsibility toward your own learning and your own goals. There's no one else holding you accountable when you're sitting alone in your room or your kitchen or your office or your house or whatever. This is all on you. There's no one in the classroom saying, hey, put your phone down, right? Or, hey, stop talking to the person next to you. So it really is incumbent upon the online learner to take responsibility for themselves, to turn off alerts, turn off social media. Don't let the things that involuntarily grab your attention even enter into the focus. I think that is pretty critical. And I'll say from the perspective of someone who's been teaching online for a really long time, the students I have who are successful are the ones who take Michelle's advice, who really are, like I said, independent learners and are really focused. It's a choice. It is absolutely a choice that an online learner makes to turn off those distractions and not let them, even come into your field of vision, as it were. The other thing that Michelle mentioned, and I think it bears even more attention, is that there's still opportunity when you're learning online and something is unclear or you have questions about the material or something your instructor said. I think one of the misnomers about learning online is students often feel like they don't have an opportunity to ask questions or ask for clarification. And I couldn't disagree more. Again, it feels different, it looks different, it happens differently, but I want to urge students to take those opportunities. If you're reading, for example, something for your class, make sure that you're taking notes as you're reading and you're noting what's unclear for you, where are the questions you have. If you're watching a recorded lecture or a live lecture that your instructor is doing, and you may not have the opportunity to just raise your hand and ask right in the moment, but you can still capture that question and then share it in the online discussion forum or reach out individually to your instructor. A lot of times when students will email me a question, I'll say, you know what, this is such a great question. I want you to post it publicly because it will help all of your peers. And, good instructors will always encourage that kind of dialogue. So take advantage of those opportunities to ask for clarification and ask questions. Don't let the online forum be a barrier, because it certainly can feel like one, but you kind of have to take the initiative to break it down in the ways that are available to you.
Yeah, that's really great advice. Thank you. I think that's one of the big questions I have, because I know for myself, I'm a very tactile learner. I like to see it. I like to hear it. I like to be there and feel something, the shape of the chair or whatever it is. And what if online learning really is not someone's learning style per se, and it's really just going to be an extra difficult barrier for them? Do you have any suggestions for really if that motivation and that focus is failing in a lot of other ways, how to stay engaged in that way?
Part of it is identifying the things that you actually really enjoy about learning and figuring out how to build those into your day, right? So if one of the things you really enjoy about learning is connecting with your community, you can build in your own little Zoom rooms and invite some folks to join you there and have some smaller dialogues. So make your own group discussions, if you will. You can do that if that's how you really like to engage in a class. You can also do that to make each other accountable. So you could set up a Zoom room and you can say, hey, we don't even need to talk to each other, but at least you're witnessing me be here. And that alone is a way to get yourself to sort of be there and engage with the material. That's good. Also, as Ali said, reaching out to your faculty. If your faculty are also new to this in some cases, so there are some things that they may not have thought about, such as letting you know the best way to communicate with them while doing this online. So you can prompt them and say, hey, could you let us know, do you want emails? Do you want us to use discussion board? You can actually help them help you. So by asking for those clarifying things, that can be helpful. The general motivation to do this, again, that really comes down to how you learn while you're on campus. Do you need to set a schedule for yourself? Do you need your friends? Do you need your instructor? What is it that you need when you're on campus that you can sort of modify to fit into the online environment in that social way? And we'll talk about kinesthetic things you can do later to also stay motivated.
Yeah, all great stuff. A couple other thoughts that I'll add to what Michelle said. One is that I don't know if there are any faculty on this call or if it's just students, but we at University College, we strongly encourage, and as a matter of fact, we're working toward requiring our faculty to engage in a minimum of 2 synchronous opportunities per quarter. So that's offering the students a time to come together like we are right now and not relying solely on the online discussion and chat and all of that stuff. And I would say to students, if that's something that you think would be useful to you, don't hesitate to ask your instructor, hey, will there be any synchronous opportunities in this class? As Michelle said, it may very well be for a faculty who's new and they haven't taught online before, they're still new to it, that they just didn't even consider it, and they might think, oh wow, yeah, I'd love to do that, that's a great idea. And faculty do it differently. Some of our faculty, for example, offer it as a way to just connect individually with students and do it sort of like office hours. Some do, class discussion. So it can happen in various ways, but I think that's one way of getting around this feeling of and excuse this word, especially right now, but this feeling of isolation that online learning tends to, bring us. The other thing I'll throw out, and I guess this kind of relates to more like what we were saying earlier, how to just make the transition to online learning. But pay attention to when in the day is a good time for you to work and learn. Because with one of the challenges, and this is true for just all of us are working from home now, one of the challenges is everything just feels so fluid, and when do I do this and when don't I, and should I be working at 9 o'clock at night because I notice that someone else is. I think you need to, as Michelle said earlier, set times for yourself, but those times should be influenced by when you work best. Personally, I work really well in the morning, and so I usually reserve my harder cognitive stuff for the morning, and then in the afternoon I try to just fire off and get a whole bunch of things done that don't take a lot of cognitive load, as it were. So that's something else I wanted to encourage people to pay attention to. And in terms of Matt, you mentioned earlier learning styles. I won't go into a ton of information about that, but the truth is that learning styles are a little bit of a myth. They tend to have been propagated by a lot of popular media. For example, a lot of people say, I'm a visual learner. Everyone is a visual learner. If you use your eyes to learn, you are a visual learner. So the whole concept of a learning style is a little bit of a myth. That's not to say, though, that there aren't things that people are more and less comfortable with. And I think that what we're really talking about here is that people miss and thrive on the connection, the social connection that you have in person that, you may not feel as much online. And again, it just takes me back to what we were saying earlier about seeking ways to have that connection where it may not seem obvious. So as Michelle said, creating the social groups, even if your faculty member doesn't do it, you as students in Canvas have the option to email students in your class, to set up Zoom rooms with each other, to create study groups, working groups, whatever the case may be. And then again, asking your faculty member to do that as well. So I think just taking advantage and really thinking about how can I leverage this platform in a way that may not seem as obvious at first.
Yeah, and I think that leads perfectly into another question. How do students become good advocates for themselves? I think we're so used to lingering behind after class or trying to grab a professor in the hallway, dropping into office hours. These are things that might not look the same now. So, how can we bring up those conversations and bring those ideas to the table? What's the best way to connect with professors?
That's a great question. I want the first thing that comes to mind for me, and again, I think this is a lesson for faculty and students, and I'll offer that students could advocate for this if their faculty doesn't do it. But in every course I teach, I always have a module called Course Q&A. And so that's the place where I want any student who has a question really on anything about the course itself, about an assignment. I mean, I joke, if it's about life in general, I'll try to answer it. And that's where I want them to post questions. And again, because posting it there, I tell my students, make sure you're checking the board really frequently, because even if you didn't have a question, you never know when someone else's question might be a benefit to you. So that's one suggestion I have is leveraging that course Q&A platform. If it's there, make sure you're using it, make sure you're checking it. If it's not there, ask your faculty, hey, you know what? It'd be really great if we had a platform where we could, post and share questions. The other thing is, I hope I speak for all faculty when I say that we're more than happy for students to reach out with questions. But again, for me, unless it's of a very personal nature and you're not willing to post it publicly, I'll usually encourage my students to post it publicly for that reason. But I never mind if students reach out to me with questions. I do say there are two caveats to that. One is that I do encourage my students to make sure that they have exhausted the resources at their disposal. So one thing that I think can feel frustrating for faculty is if a student reaches out to the faculty member with questions that the answers to those questions are in the course syllabus or in the assignment instructions. So make sure you really are exhausting the resources at your disposal. And that is a way to advocate for yourself, because then you're making sure that the questions you're asking your faculty are good critical questions, not the kinds of questions that make the faculty go, okay, if you had just read the syllabus, right? And so I think that is one of the caveats. And then the second is that I tell students, if you have a lot of questions, maybe just group them together instead of sending me like 18 emails.
Yeah, that's all great. I think another thing is that I've had the privilege of looking at what's happening in some of the DU courses and how faculty are delivering them. And so what I've seen is a lot of faculty are just holding Zoom sessions when their regular class time would be. And so you need to seize that opportunity to ask questions during that time. So come prepared to those sessions that they are hosting. So have things that you could either chat to them, have some questions ahead of time if you can. They're usually going to be talking about something perhaps that you've been reading or that you've already been watching. So come prepared. That's really key if that's how they're handling it. I also know that some of the faculty have not established discussion questions or discussion boards in their Canvas containers. So they're relying solely on email. So use the Canvas email app to contact them, because they have set that up to be probably notified that they've gotten an email. And as Ali said, the days are a little bit fluid. So, that's the cool thing is if you do have a question at 1 a.m., you can still email that question at that time. So being an advocate for yourself within how the course is set up is something that you'll have to individualize as well. I've seen a couple other faculty that aren't doing any of that actually, and they're just putting up sort of PowerPoint decks. So it is going to be even more important for you to note the questions you have, group them together, and then email them like Ali said. Because then it's specific to one thing, and the instructor isn't spending, hours writing essay answers back to you, because you probably don't want to read that anyway. So it's kind of being aware that this is happening to you, it's happening to them, but you need to ask for what you need.
Yeah. And I think, the solution, part of that solution includes good note taking. So what kind of tips or practices have y'all seen which work well for taking notes and being able to listen and process, and maybe like you were talking earlier with the dual screens. I mean, I have the dual screens, the iPad, the phone, It's like I'm wired into everything all the time. And I think we learned here that's part of the problem. But
Yeah.
that, you know, what tips do we have for note taking to be able to make those succinct and accurate notes to send to professors and say, look, I have these questions?
One of the things you need to know about yourself too is how you respond to receiving information. So I still like paper. So if they give you that PowerPoint deck, print it, take your notes directly on their slides or next to their slides. If they have material that you can refer back to, print that material too. Then you have something tangible and it doesn't feel so maybe far away as some online situations can feel. I'd also say your faculty have organized their notes in a way that they're thinking about them, right? So if you want to take notes on their notes, realize that is their organizing structure. It may not be your own. So consider how you like to take notes, right? So again, go back to old school outline thinking. So think big topic. What are the sub things I need to know underneath this? And then what are the details I need? So go back to that high level, mid-level, lower level structure when you're taking notes to just sort of have at least something that you can rely on to understand how you're thinking about things. You can also share your notes with each other. That's also one of the cool things about this is if you think you're like the primo note taker, you could share your notes with your classmates. That's pretty cool because maybe they didn't get the same things you got, or they got something you didn't get out of the material. So sharing notes is also really impactful. I know for a lot of students, and this includes my sons as well, and some folks I've had in class, it's hard to discern what's important and what's not. So you almost feel like you're highlighting everything, or when you print it, you're like, oh, that's important, that's important. Oh, I'm gonna have to like memorize this stuff. That's not it. You have to look for the key grabbers, right? What is it that you think are the key things that you need to take away from any reading? So come up with a system as you're reading through your material to how you're going to interact with that material. So you're going to read, you're going to analyze, and then you're going to question. So those three things, so read, analyze, question, with everything that you're reading that your faculty, and hopefully you're reading everything that your faculty has put up. If you have a structure for how you're going to approach those readings, that also helps you with your note taking. So again, that's read, analyze, and question. And if you approach it that way, you at least know that you've gone through it in some sort of systematic way. And that does help you take those notes.
Those are great tips. Michelle is really good at those kind of helpful tips and thinking about the ways to succeed in online learning. So I appreciate that. I kind of want to come at this question from a slightly different angle. So maybe thinking a little bit bigger picture. So Matt, you mentioned that it's so easy to get distracted. And certainly, I mean, look, this is true for anyone online. But, you know, we've already said earlier, though it bears repeating, that it's a choice that you have to make to turn off those distractions. When you're studying, turn off your phone. And I mean that. Like, I know that people are like, wait, what? But yes, turn off your phone and put it somewhere else, put it across the room, turn off your email, make sure you're not getting your little dings that, again, are creating involuntary distractions. There's this feeling, and, you know, I'll just say it, it's mostly among millennials and younger, but we're really good at multitasking because we've grown up doing it. So this is actually my area of research. I study how the adult brain learns, and I'm here to tell you that multitasking is a myth. Our brains are simply not capable of doing it. It's not even a thing. There's no such thing as multitasking. What is actually happening is that you're task switching. And because our brains can't actually attend to two, at least cognitively robust items at one time. So all that's really happening is you're switching from one task to another. Consequently, you're not doing either task very well. And there is a plethora of research out there that demonstrates that multitasking, and in particular multitasking with technology, unfortunately is linked to lower academic success, lower cognitive abilities, and most importantly, lowered attention. So I think that's really important. And then that links for me, the other thing that I think is really important for students to know, it is a lot easier to, in an online learning environment, to just say, well, I'll just, I don't really have to read because now I can just, not have my screen on when we're doing the Zoom call, and I don't really have to pay attention, and I can probably figure it out when the test comes because I can do it open book. Some of those things might be true and you might scrape by in a class. So I really like to ask my students to think about, why are you here? And, your ultimate goal is actually to learn from the classes you're taking so that you can be competitive in the marketplace. You can get yourself a good job that sets yourself up for success in your life. So think a little bit bigger picture, and realize that if you do the work, you do the reading, you take the notes, you ask your faculty the questions, and you interact, that those things are going to set you up for success, not just in class, but really longer term as well. So I think just some bigger picture things to think about as well that relate to the question that Matt asked.
I think so. I'm looking here at our chat, and it does look like we have a couple of faculty tuned in. So I want to take the time to ask, I'm sure this is, and we've mentioned it briefly before, going to be a big adaptation for faculty as well. So could you provide just some insight onto what it looks like from the faculty side so that students can better understand kind of the adaptation that they're going through as well?
Allie, do you want to take that one first?
Sure, yeah, happy to. So Matt, when you ask what does it look like from the faculty side, can you say a little bit more about what you're asking?
Sure. In general, this is a big change for a residential college. We are used to, for the most part, at the undergrad level, taking most, if not all, of our courses in person. Our professors are used to that delivery, just like us. And I know that this is more aimed at the learning side for students, but I think it helps students have a little patience and a little empathy when we understand where our professors are coming from with this change as well.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for asking that. It's funny. As big a proponent as I am for online learning, and I certainly am, obviously being the associate dean for the College of Continuing and Professional Studies at the University of Denver, probably 15 years ago, I found myself. So my background, my PhD, is in human communication. And I found myself talking to a colleague way back then about online learning. And he asked me if I taught online. And I said, no, I'm not interested in teaching online. And he said, why not? And I said, because I teach human communication. And he kind of laughed and he said, that's how humans communicate nowadays. And it's funny, but even 15 years ago, that was true. And it's certainly more true now. We do so much online communicating, and yet we're a little bit reticent still to learn online. I think the faculty are having the exact same struggle. Do I still prefer face-to-face teaching? You bet. Absolutely. I do. I love the human connection with my students, and it is different online. So I think that, faculty are probably struggling a little bit because it does mean pivoting your approach. But one thing that I think both faculty and students should know is that it really doesn't have to mean losing the strength of the content that you're teaching. And that is absolutely still possible to do. It is a shift, and it does take some focused attention and some learning new things. Which I would hope that faculty, just like students, are lifelong learners and are open, to doing that. Most faculty are hired to be subject matter experts, right? And they're not necessarily hired because of their online teaching prowess. And so, especially now with having to make this shift so quickly because of the pandemic, there are faculty who are scrambling to get up to speed, but I want to say major kudos to them, because what I've seen in the DU community is that they are fully embracing this, and they know how important it is for their students. And so what I appreciate, Matt, about your question is this notion of empathy, and that, hey, we're all in this together, and let's make this work. So in some way, I think it might be a much more collaborative approach, which I think is very cool.
I would second that in terms of the collaboration. So as a student, if you find something that's working really well for you, share that with your faculty member, because they may not know. It's that. So I'm going to take this from a little bit more of the social emotional side of things. So Allie also mentioned she likes teaching in person. I do too. We get the juice, right? You can read the room, you can feel it. You have that sort of nuanced undertone of classes, and you can guide it a little bit better than when everyone's just on a screen. So encouraging you to use certain things in your communication. I know emojis are a little wackadoodle for some folks and they don't like them, but they do help. If you write a statement that can come across a little bit controversial, if you will, adding that emoji or exclamation points, typing it in all caps, things like that, to kind of convey emotion in a written text rather than just verbally, that's going to be something that your faculty member may not know. And so be aware that if they are writing things or saying things in a certain way that are coming across a little bit uncomfortably, it may not be because they mean them that way. It may just be because the emotion behind it isn't clear from how you're interpreting it. Also, like Allie said, folks have been thrown into this, right? So their expectations of themselves probably haven't even been set yet, because they don't know what they can do if they have never done it, right? So it's kind of like learning how to swim, but we just threw everyone in the pool, and that's a little scary, right? So some people are going to naturally take to it, and others it's going to be learning to doggy paddle first. So for faculty, it's gonna be a little bit all over the place, and you just have to accommodate that. So one of the things I'm going to share that you guys might all identify with a little bit, because you're learning this too, is no one loves video version of themselves, right? No faculty member decided to be a faculty member because they wanted to be a video rock star. Like, they didn't choose that, right? So they're going to be confronted with who they are in this presence, right? And sometimes that feels super weird. You're like, oh no. Like, I'm dressed from here up below, I'm totally in my pajamas, you know? So you have to be aware that faculty are a little uncomfortable too, just as you are. Learning how you teach too. Now this is a reflective practice for them. So they're gonna see themselves like they've never seen themselves before. And that could be freaky for some of them, and others will be like, oh my God, I am awesome. And then the others are going to be like, yeah, I'm not doing video anymore, ever. So you just have to be aware they're having that sort of emotional and social struggle themselves. So, empathy for that. Also, knowing how you show up on video is a totally different thing. Like, I could wander off and not even pay attention just because I'm used to moving. So there's some things that you're just going to have to play with, and faculty are too. So kind of being aware of those things.
I think that's such a great point. The first thing I did was turn on my beautifying filter on Zoom, because I said, why not?
Yeah, right.
And I'm always looking at myself too every time. Even if someone else is talking, my eyes flick back and forth just to see how I'm appearing. That's all great points. I did want to move a little bit toward thinking about emotions and physical health in this digital space. And I know we had mentioned earlier setting times to get up and do walks and whatnot as a good reward structure. But what other tips have y'all seen are successful in keeping yourself physically and emotionally healthy with online learning and concentrated screen time?
So this is where it's hard for me to sit still. As you can tell, I'm moving around. But what some of my students have found to be really successful for them is you have to build your space. One of the things that we encourage most students who are taking online is to build out a space that is only for learning, right? So like your desk or a corner, your kitchen table, whatever it is, and treat that sort of like your study space and make it sort of sacred. Like that's all you do there, unless it's your kitchen table and you have to eat. But that's all that you do there. Making the physical space represent the learning environment is very helpful. Also, knowing how you respond to sitting so long. Like I will get up, I'll march in place if I'm reading, if I'm watching a video, I will engage in that kind of activity as well. Again, setting those times. So if I sit my butt down for an hour, then I get to go do something. And I really do that. Thank God I had a treadmill at home because all the gyms are closed. But that's one of those things. There's a million free videos now on YouTube. I think everybody and their brothers is calling it the timeout workout. Or the other one I heard was the stay at home six pack. So you can find a million videos on YouTube that you can use to, this time is perfect. You get to set up your own setting to be physical. Say you actually even have a physical goal. Well, we're probably stuck like this for a month. So having a physical goal that you want to accomplish during that time, hey, why not? Nobody's telling you not to do it. Nobody's telling you how to do it. You're not at the gym with other people that you feel like might be judging you. This is the perfect time for you to set up a physical goal as well as your learning goals. That is really helpful. There are some things that folks haven't thought of that are really practical, funny tips. Is if you are going to create the Zoom room session, you can do a 5-minute dance breakout. I mean, it seems sort of corny, but that is one of those things. Invite your class and say, okay, everyone, I'm totally stressed out and I don't like this anymore. Let's do a Zoom dance party and just somebody be the music and you'll all just freak out together. It is also that social bonding. So there is movement involved. There's that connection to one another. And then you've already said, okay, we're going to do this for 2 or 3 minutes and then we're going to move on. Other things that you can do if you don't have a lot of space is, just even physically stretching while you're working, watching that posture. Consider the ergonomics involved with how you work as well. It's really easy to slump or, kind of twist your back up and things like that. And you're going to get sore and you're going to feel older than you are. And we don't want that ever. So doing some of those physical movements as you're working is really important. So just to kind of summarize what I said there. So making your environmental space, setting up your physical goals for this time that we're in this space, and then also making your environment conducive to your ergonomic work. That's really important to help with aches and pains that can come from overuse in certain ways. So those are some sort of physical, practical tips.
Yeah, I'll second all of that. Yes, to everything Michelle said. And just so everybody knows, like she and I really do model what we're teaching. I have an app on my phone that dings me actually every 15 minutes to move around. And every hour on the hour, I get up and do something physical. I do reward myself for, working for a certain amount of time, whether it's petting my dogs or stepping outside on my deck to enjoy the nice weather, just for a few minutes. So those things are all really important. The other thing I'll throw out is consider what you need. It's great to think about like what you're going to take for yourself when you break from work, but consider what you need while you're working too. For me, if I'm really needing to work on something, so for students, it would be, obviously a paper or studying for an upcoming test or something like that. For me personally, I play at a really low volume, like spa music. And that just helps me just make sure that I'm calm and I'm relaxed. And for me, it helps me. Classical music is also an excellent choice. I know it's not as popular nowadays, but there actually is a link between classical music and some cognitive success. So that's good for people to know. There's one other thing I was going to say, and now I think I blanked on it. But yeah, so I think just thinking about what you need in that space while you're in it. because, you know, as I said at the beginning of the call, this online learning and the online communicating in general is only going to get more and more common as we move forward. So I think it's really important for people to know that, and not to think like, okay, I'm just going to try to force this for the 15 minutes that I have to, so that then I don't have to do it anymore. I think, unfortunately, that's not where we're headed, and that's probably not a very realistic approach. So instead, think about what do you really need. You know, if you can't afford to buy yourself a brand new ergonomic, you know, Herman Miller chair, look at Amazon and find that they've got things you can put on your chair, on the back of your chair, to help your lumbar, and on your seat to help make sure you're sitting in a way that's comfortable for you. And then again, make sure that you stand up to work every now and then too. You don't always have to sit to work. Standing to work is a great alternative. So when I mentioned I move around every 15 minutes, it doesn't mean I break from work, but I just pick up my laptop, take it with me, and go to my standing desk. So just think about things like that you do need, to embrace.
I'm going to add on to that a little bit too, because obviously most of you are probably, well, maybe not, but some of you are at home with other people, and being your parents, your roommates, whatever, engage them in this experience a little bit. They can become your accountability partners. So if you are dinking around and not really doing the stuff that you should be doing, you can ask your roommate, your parents, I know, somebody in the household, if they're there, or somebody to call you, if you're not staying attentive. So this becomes kind of an accountability thing for you. I know you probably don't want to ask your parents to say, hey, you're not doing your homework, because they're probably thinking that they're supposed to be doing that anyway. And it's really way uncomfortable, just so that you know that. I don't want to police my kids in college, because I want them to take on their learning as they are. But you may need to engage your parents or a sibling or whatever to kind of keep you accountable. You know, even have them ask you at the end of the day, okay, what'd you learn today? What did you accomplish? Give them the guidelines that they need to help you. So, you know, it could be, hey, person, you know, I love that you're trying to help me study, but here's what I really need from you. Can you ask me these questions? Can we just stick to this? Because we need some role differentiation in this process. And I can tell you, your parents or whoever is living with you at this time is also feeling a little bit of a social and emotional stress from how we're doing this. So that's just something to keep in mind as well.
And it looks like Anne is coming back on here for some question and answer from the audience. So I will turn it back over to you.
You will, but stay on for 1 second. I have one important question for you, which is, what, Matt, is the best thing that you think you've seen just being in online learning for all of 36 hours?
So I've had one Zoom class so far, and I can say it was weird, but I think that the breakout sessions and use of breakout sessions is very fun and interesting, and it breaks up the monotony of the coursework in general. And I had Professor Hazen, and we did a great little practice with our breakout sessions and went through some group conversation. And I think we actually had really good conversations. Our class took it very seriously and didn't just all decide to goof off in our little room. But I think that was a good refresher for us to kind of shake up that monotony of 2 hours of just Zoom. So I would say that's been the best part so far.
Cool. So I've been taking notes. I just want you to know, Allie and Michelle, I have 5 little things that I've been taking, but you've really said some stuff that I haven't heard before, and I've been thinking about this as we've been preparing for this, but the Zoom room for students and thinking about that as an accountability measure, I thought that was amazing. Asking and advocating in the value of being willing to be vulnerable and do that publicly and not just privately so your whole class gets it. Allie, you said remember the why, like why we're here, and that can be really motivational. We've had a couple of questions about how do you stay motivated. I think that's so cool. So those are just some of the ones that I'm gonna put this on my screen when we're done and I can remember. So jumping into the questions, one is, and you've talked a little bit about this, but can you dig a little bit deeper into how do you promote community and connection among students in an online environment? So we've talked a little bit about how do you show emotion when you're, writing and using the emojis, the dance breaks, kinds of things like that. What other ideas and thoughts do you have? I think it's particularly important because this is part of this Community Plus Values project too. So I loved that question.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think both faculty and students can do this. I don't think it's up to one or the other. And that's one of the things that students, I think we've already said this, but that students may not realize is that, they can advocate for their sense of community as well, and not just leave it up to the faculty member. But one of the ways that I think, again, we've touched on a couple of these already with breakout sessions and just reaching out to your fellow students as peers, both on the academic side to say, hey, I'd love a study partner, but I think also on the social side, getting together for study groups and things like that is a great way to build community among your classmates. With us working virtually right now, I've done this with the team I supervise. Every Friday we do a team virtual fun. And so like one of the things, for example, this coming Friday, we have a contest to see who can find the funniest avatar. And so we don't know yet. I don't know what people are, but when we log on to our Zoom room, you're supposed to show a funny avatar instead of your own picture, and then we'll vote to see who wins. So just silly, funny little things like that you can do. We're also going to do a virtual pizza party where I have pizza delivered to every one of my team members' houses at the same time, and then we're going to eat pizza together. So it's just really, you kind of have to think, for lack of a better cliche, outside the box about ways that you can engage in community, even though we're all stuck here behind our screens. I do want to, for me, I noticed another question that may seem tangential to this discussion, but I want to make sure to get to it, and I think I can relate it. I noticed that someone asked a question about, how do we engage in dialogue that's meaningful, but also doesn't get contentious if it's a topic that is, because I do think that relates to this sense of community. Clearly, it's not quite the same thing as in online learning as it is when you're talking about some kind of social forum where you can post something nasty anonymously, because of course in online learning we can't be anonymous, but nonetheless I do think that the screen sometimes can make us a little bit braver than we might be in person to say something untoward. I think that the onus is still on all of us as community members, the faculty member, but also peers, to create that sense of respect among one another from the get-go. So one of the things I do, and I always recommend for any faculty who's new to teaching online, is we always create class norms at the beginning of the course, and I post them in my course home module, and we create them together. They don't come from me. It's something we do as a class as one of our first discussions in week 1. So what does good participation and good community look like for you as class members? What do you all want to see from one another in order to help each other succeed in this class? And I will tell you, it tends to be one of students' favorite activities, and it's meaningful. And then I remind them that, like, you guys created these, it's something that we've done together, and so you now are empowered to hold one another accountable for that. And so it takes all of the pressure off the faculty, not that we don't have some, but to say, hey, community members, this is something we're doing together. So Michelle, anything to add to all that?
Community is different online, of course, right? So if you do have those discussion boards, engage, be there. I kind of treat my discussion boards in my classes almost like text messaging. I try not to write that way, but I do sometimes. But I check it frequently just to stay with the flow of the conversation, just to know where you need to interject and where you can share something. And somebody did ask, as Ali alluded to, about communication potentially getting violent online. Here's the thing that you have to remember. You're still bound by the DU honor code. So if somebody comes to class in a threatening way, that is still a violation of the honor code. So knowing that for yourself and knowing that for your classmates. If something like that happens, you do need to let your faculty know it's happening because they may not be checking as regularly. The other thing is, because you don't get to do the facial expression as much if you're in the text format, really, like I said before, relying on different ways to convey that emotion is going to be helpful in cutting off things that might appear harsh when you don't mean them to be. Consider also, would you say what you're going to say online? Would you say that same thing in person? And consider that before you actually hit post. As Ali said, sometimes we become braver, but sometimes we also don't process as much when we're just trying to get something out there. So being aware of those things. Building that sense of community too is part of asking questions. You know, we say your faculty may have established like post about this. The other side of that is use inquiry. Ask those questions that are coming up. Don't be shy. And the thing is, curiosity is why you're in college. This is what you're supposed to be doing now. Ask those questions. And you know what? No question, I know you've heard this, no question is a dumb question. If it's small as a clarifying question or how do I question, ask them. Building that sense of inquiry into your courses is really helpful. And then that it does help us feel like a community as well.
I think those are great. And Ali, you jumped right into the question that I was going to ask as a follow-up. One, I just wanted to note that Sister Fred had asked about your research. If you have research, you can refer her to on the multitasking and how the brain works, that she would love to see that. And if you can CC me on it, I can make sure that we post it on the Community Plus Values places online as we get those up and going. I'm curious, there was also somebody who asked about cost of technology, that this is creating an extra burden because of some of the technology that they need to adopt. And I actually am not familiar with what DU is doing. I think it's such a great question to kind of help provide and make sure that that access is available in an equitable way to everyone. So Ali and Michelle, if you have an answer to that, that's great. Otherwise, I would just encourage that person who posted that anonymously to reach out. My email's on the web at ann.ayers@du.edu, and I will follow up with you. But do you all know?
I'm not familiar with any requirements that DU has put out that would be an additional cost to students. I know that when students, I shouldn't say I know, for University College, I know that we do let our students know that, you know, to be a student here, it's expected that you have, you know, a computer of some kind and that you have a certain amount of bandwidth capability. You need to have a camera and a microphone. So I don't know, maybe the camera and the microphone are something that DU students hadn't been told previously, or maybe it's specific to a class that they're taking, that maybe some new software. Yeah, that I'm not sure about. It's a great question.
It is, isn't it? We're coming up on time here, so I want to just ask one final question, which I thought was a great one and a nice one to end on. If you just had one or two thoughts for us about how you think, in your crystal balls, this might change education in the future, this experience of kind of pushing us all online. I know that's a huge question, but what are just, you know, in this last 60 seconds, one or two thoughts you have?
Well, I think this is forcing everyone to get more comfortable with technology. So I think that's going to happen. I also think that your faculty may take away a different way to use Canvas when we come back to campus. Of course, they're going to see better ways that they can potentially organize themselves in terms of their teaching practice. So I know it's going to have an impact. You're also going to be learning a lot more about yourself and how you engage in the online environment. So I think you're going to take those lessons away, and that will then also impact how you learn when you come back to campus.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Michelle just said. I think for sure it's going to have a long-term impact on how faculty are teaching. I also think it's probably going to create, you know, I think people will think ahead more proactively to plan for, unfortunately, if something like this happens again. And, you know, you never know. There may be faculty and students who fall in love with the online platform. It does offer a lot of benefits, like more flexibility and some, you know, fun with technology that on-campus learning doesn't offer. And so we may very well see a shift in that as well. You know, one of the things that I think online online learning forces faculty to do is to rethink their approach. And again, I study how the adult brain learns, and we know from research that things like very long lectures, which tend to happen more frequently on campus than online, are actually force students' brain to stay at what we call a low cognitive. They basically flatline the student's brain, cognitively speaking. So it's moving toward best practice for teaching, regardless of the platform, is one of the exciting things that I could see coming out of the current situation.
Jump in real quick too, because this is part of the mom in me too, and just the way I am, is you have to realize once you're out of school, you don't have anybody holding you accountable anymore at your job. So this is excellent practice for what it feels like to be an employee and have to be turned on. So just taking that and shifting it outside of college a little bit too is helpful.
Yeah, that was what my husband, my partner, was saying to our children last night. Now they're only 12, so they have a long way to go. But they were kind of looking at him like, really? But he was making that point. So I want to just say thank you. These are great tips. One of the ones that I noted is just this idea of assuming positive intent and giving everyone grace in this process. So that's one of the pillars of the work that we're doing. One of the guidelines for community plus values is to really let people come as they are and assume that there's positive intent and that we're all in this together, the greater DU mission together. So thank you so much. Matt, you do such a great job, I think, of representing the student voice. It's fantastic. And Michelle and Allie, thank you for your time and your expertise. And we have another webinar that will be happening on Thursday from 11 to 12. We have Dr. Rohini Gupta, who's going to come from the Graduate School for Professional Psychology to talk about just the trauma of some of what's going on right now, and also how we cope with that, with anxiety and depression, and some of the stigma that is that's going on that's related to this as well. So we hope you can join us, and thank you so much for being here. Have a great afternoon, everybody.
One last comment that I wanted to add. To answer partially that question on what kind of resources are available to support students with adapting for technology, the Student Foundation, right now under the direction of Harriet Pryor, over an advancement, to have the Student Assistance Fund, and that is available for students to access if they might not have all of the required materials that they need to perform in online classes as well. So I did want to put that plug out there.
That's great to know. Great, thank you so much. And the chat windows are available. You can go into your chat, your Zoom history, and I think Paul Pasemple has put up some great stuff, and a few other people has put resources in there. So just know that you can access that even after you log off. And we'll see you soon.